Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Lead Analyst Logan Mohtashami to talk about the latest BlackRock hysteria, a 3-year high in home demand, and the Fed meeting. First, I want to thank our sponsor, Trust and Will, for making this episode possible. Logan, welcome back to the podcast.
It's lovely to be here in sunny Orange County, California. Wow, man. I was telling you, when I was coming back from Indiana, I had to stop in Chicago, and while I was walking in the corridors to go to the airplane, I'm just breathing cold air.
You can see your breath, right?
Yeah, and while I'm sitting in my seat, I'm still breathing cold air. I was like, no, get me home. Get me back to the 70 degrees, man.
Okay, well, you're back to the 70 degrees and back to the amazing conspiracy that just will not die, that BlackRock is buying up all the homes, selling them for super high to they can jack up prices of neighborhoods. It sort of exploded over the weekend or maybe end of last week because a politician, said addressed it and said, we need to do something about this. Maybe you can bring us up to speed here.
Just when you don't think the bat bleep thing gets worse, it got really crazy this weekend. So, of course, I don't really watch TV outside of football, by the way. NFL and college football has been great this year. In any case, people were sending me this meme that BlackRock bought 50,000 homes, which in a sense, the entire lie is already broken there from the first one. But they bought their homes for 350,000. Then overnight they sold them for 700,000. And that's why home values are up, post-COVID. And I sat there, I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I mean, they took it to a crazy level. Imagine the person who made that thinking, my God, Americans are going to be so dumb that they're going to believe this. So I was like, okay. So I what I do is I take these pictures of it and I just rip it on social media and made a video on Instagram. But then I saw that a politician went on CNN and said, well, BlackRock owns all the single family homes in America and they're, jacking up prices. So we're trying to ban them. I think there's some law to try to ban them from. So then I put that video on top of that. And it's basically just reading, man. First of all, it's again, Blackstone. Okay. I can maybe slightly forgive people. Blackstone, BlackRock, the rock and the stone, Sharon Stone versus the rock in a battle. Who's going to win that? Whatever. Right. We can maybe do with that. But to now make that the post-COVID highs in prices was an overnight purchase and then an overnight sale. You're going into the Russians were really good at disinformation and class warfare campaigns in the last decade, but this goes into some crazy land that you can't even comprehend. You think it's a joke, but then, this is happening. So, we have to shoot this down because for those that see me on the Nerdtory, I always do this joke. How many people said BlackRock they buy 0 homes? And the aggregate data, the biggest home buyer in America is usually the biggest driver of supply and demand equilibrium. And that was those pesky millennials. They were the ones, why don't we ban them? They don't even offer you a house. Like a Gen X person and a baby boomer actually puts a house on the market, they sell and they buy it. But these criminals,
I have never seen a social media reaction to that post like yesterday where people were like, thank you, Logan, for pointing this out. Oh my gosh, so glad you said it. So glad you're busting this and then that post got 1 million views?
On Twitter, because I retweeted the politician who went on CNN and said BlackRock owns all the single family. I said,
it's a false narrative that feeds into other false narratives, and it's like the reason. First of all, how could any entity buy a bunch of homes and then the next day sell it for double? Do they own all the sellers?
So the funny part is, I've dealt with troll camps. When you deal with the Russians and the Chinese, you just know how to go after these people. Like a lot of people, they just flood you with stuff and then they think you just go straight at them. I encourage everyone, go to the YouTube channel of ours where we challenge people to live debates and all those men run away like cowards. But here, one gentleman said, BlackRock bought, X 5,000 homes in this state. And I was like, let's all take a calculator. There's near 5 million homes bought every single year. Everyone take your calculator and just do the math there and tell me that's the biggest variable in supply and demand economics and housing. So it's just, and part of this is BlackRock is like a humongous, massive, financial institution, like $3-4 trillion they manage. Blackstone is like this little tiny thing. So you can't say it's Blackstone because they're so small. But some of the narrative has been, well, one day when Wall Street is going to be in trouble, they're all going to, once again, rush to sell all the homes, and you dumb homeowners and buyers are left with the bag and home prices are, So, Sarah, what would this country be if I wasn't here? Who would regulate this stuff in this kind of manner? Because no one else is really doing it, in the academic world. There should be other economists and everything just like, pounding the fist on this. But yeah, it's just this that went to another crazy level that I did not think was even possible. But again,
the other thing is, if they own those homes, they're renting those homes. Why would they sell those homes? They're obviously making money on those homes, or they wouldn't be doing that. But they're not going to wholesale sell all of their portfolio of homes.
Here's the thing. A lot of people say, why don't we just ban all investors? Like, you get these like delusional men online who say, let's just ban all investors. Let's just flood the market with all these rental homes. And then people go, Logan, why don't they just give tax breaks to investors to do this? Okay, number one, you're giving tax breaks to investors, right? In this political climate or any political climate, do you think that's like feasible? Number two, what do you do with the family members that live there? That is where people start to go, well, I never thought about that.
Right.
Why didn't you think about that? What do you think? These homes are empty? These people just buy the homes and they sit there and nothing's in there. They just hold those, no. So you kick out American families and then you reduce the rental supply in those areas. And then rent inflation goes higher because whatever is left, those landlords are going, oh boy, I can charge a lot more because I have X amount of people coming in, and guess what? They can't do anything about it. They have to rent. CPI inflation goes up, so then imagine the politician who has now tons of people who are now don't have a home, not home buyers, and there's a few rental supplies, and now they're bidding up rents. That's not a good look. That's why it doesn't happen. Right, because the optics of kicking people out of their homes, and then all of a sudden the rents go up, and then inflation goes up, and you have no mechanism to bring supply in. Because guess what? Where are housing permits, Sarah? They're at recession levels. We were told we're going to build millions and millions of homes because we have to create more supply. We are at recessionary levels of permits and starts. That's why we wrote that in June of 2021. When rates go up and demand fades, production will fall like it always has, and it has here. So the whole optics around this economic stuff is just not feasible for some people to think for more than 3 seconds. So, but if you say BlackRock, if you say they own all the homes, they're the villains. The affordability issues that we have in this country is because of them. Class warfare. They have all the money. Arr.
At some point, we're going to unite all the housing conspiracies together, and it's going to be BlackRock has decided to sell their Airbnb homes, to like the silver tsunami. I don't know. We're going to have like it all in one.
There is always going to be people like this, and again, like we've always said that our tracker data is very prolific and trying to give people a heads up. And we saw another home price data report that said pricing is firmed up. And we talked about, hey, things changed 6 months ago. Things changed late 2022. Things changed mid 2024. If we ever saw a rush of sellers, we'll be the first one to know, because I don't do anything on a Friday night and just look at the tracker data and look at the data. If I saw a vertical new listings data, and we are here at the end of 2025, and like we said, the people that believe in reading have an advantage, because none of that new listing stuff ever happened. We never even got back to the normal 80 to 100,000 that we would see from 2013 to 19, right? So again, people live in these homes, right? American citizens have property rights. What they want to do with their house is their business. You can make laws that, there are cities that have banned Airbnbs, but, this is not like hoarding empty homes, and sitting there and this, they paid a lot of money. They're just, no. So in a general use, some people use it to short-term rentals. Then sometimes they take that short-term, make it long-term rentals. And then there are people who are living in these homes. So the whole thing got out of control. But for this story, I think because affordability is becoming more of a political issue, especially the midterms are coming up, they're just throwing everything they can. And then you have to find a villain. If you do not have a villain, how can you create that rage? And it's really hard to make it mom and pops. Like they own like 90% of the rentals units. They provide shelter, out here. So this one just, I thought this was kind of dying down, but it went to a nuclear level of craziness that I haven't seen in a very long time.
Well, I'm excited. I'm thankful that you take on the trolls on this and I saw so many messages of support, like, thank God someone's saying this. So let's turn to the tracker, right? Because we had a really interesting tracker this week. December demand at almost a 3-year high. So let's talk about that.
So how I do the tracker is a little bit different than everyone because I work everything off the 10-year yield. I do not believe in mortgage rate targeting. I think that's an inefficient way to do economics. If you just do the quarterly mortgage where you think that is, I believe in daily, weekly, because we take all the economic variables in there together. And the reason housing data got better recently is because the labor market got softer. If the labor market didn't get softer, Fed policy means rates need to be higher. Right. So when the curve of the 10-year yield went lower, mortgage rates went lower, we have a working theory that the housing demand gets better from 6.64 to 6. If that wasn't the case in the last 3 years, I wouldn't be talking about it. But now that we're toward the end of December, our total pending sales data is at a multi-year high. Purchase application data itself is near a 3-year high. Early 2023, when mortgage rates got down toward 5.99%, that picked up a little bit more there. So all these things are working in an equilibrium to tell you what's happening in the market today. So months from now, when you see in the sales data, you won't be shocked. And that's why we believe the tracker is prolific, because it takes many variable data out here. I know a lot of people just look at inventory, but don't talk about demand. I know a lot of people look at the demand, but not the inventory. We have price cut percentages, weekly pending sales, total pending sales, purchase application, 10-year yield, mortgage spreads. Hug a mortgage spreads, give a mortgage spread an extra Christmas present or whatever it is. But the article really showed how important mortgage spreads were. It was flawlessly beautiful in that. It's like one of the more fun things I've ever written for HousingWire, where we didn't get the 10-year yield down to 360. This year, like last year. So we wouldn't even be near 6% mortgage rates today if it wasn't for mortgage spreads improving like they did. And they hit the peak improvement percentage for 2025.
So the thing I love about the tracker the most is the way that you are pulling all the threads and pulling it together and explaining what it all means. You have all these different disparate data points. And I do believe you're the only one who's looking at all of these things and saying, this is what it means, which is what people need to know to run their business.
It is a beautiful, lovely slow dance, but it takes the 10-year yield and mortgage rates and spreads and economics. I'm an economics person first, housing second. So everything I do, I revolve it around the bond market, right? So this is why we do channels with a 10-year yield, and we try to find levels to where demand, and early in the year, housing demand held up better than it has in the past when rates were above 6.64. So that was a cue right there. People picked up on that. Then all of a sudden we get below that level. So again, it's like an enchilada. There's a lot of things here, but it's a fluid process. And once people learn this stuff, think of it, you don't have to listen to crazy people anymore. And it is really good that I think a lot of people have now have looked at these crazy doomers on YouTube and home price crashes and everything now that we're in December. Out here. They're entertainers, they're not analysts. And again, if you really, really wanted to know about housing economics, the tracker is, to me, the most prolific way of teaching people how it operates with live data today to look forward. And then we could show a historical perspective, and then everyone learns. Think about it, a country that reads and is educated and everything, and they don't have to listen to fanatics, right? Okay. In that sense.
So let's talk about that near 3-year high.
It's a very simple model. We're working from the lowest levels of sales ever recorded in history. We had the fastest crash ever, and we've gone pretty much nowhere.
And
Now,
that's in 2022.
In 2022, and the belief back then in late 2022 was that our data is looking like we're heading toward 4 million. My entire housing economic story would absolutely break negative if I was wrong about that 4 million level. And for those who don't know, existing home sales typically do not trend below 4 million or crash below 4 million since 1996, right? This is why I've always talked about that. Everything I've written in the last 3 years would be completely null and void if home sales kept on crashing and going lower to 2 million, to 2.5 million. That wasn't the case. So the supply and demand equilibrium is working off, okay, this group of people can afford homes. We are near 5 million total home sales. But when rates get down to here, the forward-looking demand gets better. We saw that late 2022. We saw that in mid-2024. And now we've seen that in 2025. But now it's picked up just a little bit more. And that's all it is. We're working from the lowest levels. And this is why I constantly said, it doesn't take much to move the needle. But you got a 3-year high. And then if rates stay near 6% for an entire year, we have never tested that. All we have are these, 12-week periods, and then all of a sudden rates go back up to 7%. So the demand curve fades out. But every year that goes on, wages grow. Every year that goes by, households are formed. Dual household incomes are there. Dual household incomes, if you work any single affordability index model, it perfectly fine to still buy homes. This is why we have near 5 million total home sales today. Last year, 2023, the peak in the last decade was near 6. Home builders, new home sales are at 2019 sales levels still, right? Why? Sub 6% mortgage market world. So there's things you can work with, and then it starts to make a little bit more sense out there. But all it is now we have 18 weeks of rates under 6.64. Demand curve picked up a little bit. It'll be a couple 100,000 more home sales from the monthly sales lows that we had in existing home sales. And we go with that right now.
Okay, you talked about mortgage rates. If we could just get them, to stay stable for a year. We've got a Fed meeting this week. We talked about it in our last podcast. Tell me what you're thinking Fed week.
Again, under Jerome Powell, Neil Kashkari, Beth Hammock, Lori Logan, Austin Goolsbee, and a host of others, it is unacceptable to have mortgage rates near 6% because people will have sex, they will buy homes, they will buy more stuff. And it is not shocking that they get hawkish right here because Neil Kashkari told everyone in America in 2023 that how are we supposed to balance an economy if housing shows a little bit of life? So if he is saying that on national television, what do you think they're thinking in the back? There is a reason why they don't say anything about housing, right? If you have anybody, all they say they're weak. Housing's weak. Housing's weak. They don't say they cannot make policy around the existing home sales market, right? The labor data and inflation is what they run off of. But my God, if housing picks up, what are they supposed to do, right? People will buy more stuff. And the fear, again, in the last decade, we had 3.25% to 5% mortgage rates. We never had inflation breakout. We never had home prices escalate out of control with rates level because inventory was higher. So the curve is a little bit different now. If they understood that on inventory data, that you don't have to be afraid of near 6% mortgage rates, right? Near 6%. We're not talking 3, we're not talking 4, we're not even talking 5, but you don't have to be afraid. You can live your life. You don't have to be so paranoid about that out there.
Okay, well, fingers crossed. We are all hoping for that sustained near 6% just to help out our industry and help out homeowners. This is an affordability issue, right? So
it is. It's just the one of the mindsets is, for example, when you think about purchase application data being near a 3-year high at this point, we have to be mindful that literally we are working from the lowest levels ever. In the 1990s, when I was a high school basketball coach and I had blonde hair and, I was auditioning for commercials out there, crazy. Pre-Chart Logan was different. the percentage increase from these low levels isn't a lot. Now, I know some people go, we're back to 2014 levels. It's 2014 levels were like 21st century lows anyway. So just take the purchase application data in context, that it's just a trend survey, right? If we were near 250 or 300, where that index was before COVID, then you get back up to like 5 million existing home sales, and it's a lot different. The builders, the new home sales sector, their purchase application data is near COVID highs as well, because they're still at 2019 levels. So if you demand picks up a little bit, it's not going to be this home prices are rising 15, 20%. Oh my God. People have to like relax with that craziness out there. Inventory's up, price growth has cooled down. It is a very, very healthy market in this atmosphere. You don't have to panic if rates are near 6%.
I think this should be your new motto to the world. Relax with that craziness out there. That would cover a lot of things.
Listen, the world can't operate in this day and age without being crazy. I mean, clearly, we just saw that last week. I mean, I don't. For me to have like 1 million views on Twitter on a video, like that's just not my thing. I don't do porn out there, but it's just we're in a civilization that you can literally lie and get the most attention and get rewarded for lying about stuff, right? The old mages that we used to be back in the dungeons with candles and reading scrolls. Now we have to go on TikTok and dance and do stuff like this. So I don't really have to kind of understand this world. I just have to be able to operate in it and try to disseminate real information for people.
Well, we appreciate you doing that for us. We will be watching the Fed meeting, of course, very closely. Logan, thank you for being on. We'll talk to you again soon.
Pleasure.